David's 10. Want to gather together for an extended period of time for worship where we just come before the Lord to pursue His presence and initiate that place of worship, that place of sacrifice, that place of surrender and yielding. And then once His presence comes and responds to it, not to leave it. There's no other agenda. We want to create a dwelling place with Him, and then in that place chase after Him. And I just see it as having multiple different people involved, just because there's so many people in our community that express worship in multiple different ways, through music, through dance, through visual arts, pottery. There's multiple different ways that we can use our talents and gifts to bring a sacrifice before the Lord and and gather together. So on Sunday the 21st, I think is the time for us to launch it right in our second service.
Can you tell me how you came up with the idea? How did it start percolating in your heart?
Yeah, I think it was when Mark DuPont was here, and he talked about that in this next season, that the Lord is really putting His attention on worship. And because I think it's easy to get distracted on a lot of the other byproducts that are really good about His kingdom, healing, salvation. But ultimately, the end game goal is relationship, is our connection and affection. Jesus said, the greatest commandment is to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind. To bring your devotion before Him. And, we sing in our songs, we give you all of our worship, we give you all of our praise. But, there's times where I sing that and think, that's not, is that really true? Do I give Him my first? Because there's a lot of good things to be distracted by. And, but I do think that when we come into alignment with singing those songs, it puts us in a proper position in relationship with Him, because He is seeking our first. He is seeking our passion, our devotion, our attention, and to be intentional with it as a community, to have Him respond. I think the byproducts of His kingdom will break out, but let's make the focus the one thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when I think about David's tent, I really think about creating a dwelling place for the Spirit of God. And I was really impacted by a word that Emma Stark put out about, for a season it was all kind of more about houses of prayer. And now the focus is going to shift, where it's almost like God is looking for these little pockets of dwelling places within worship throughout the earth. And I just feel like that's right in line with kind of what you were feeling. And I was thinking about this whole idea of relationship and in charismatic church circles or churches, and in our faith, a lot of times we hear about, oh, God's pursuing us, he's after our hearts, which is true, but when you think about relationship in a human context, it's like nobody likes a one-sided relationship. That feels really it just doesn't feel very good.
Yeah.
And so, to be intentional as a community to really pursue the heart of God and say, we are, yes, you're pursuing us, but we actually want to pursue your presence and create this space where, we can meet together with the Lord and be led by the Holy Spirit and really just kind of sit in that place and create that space, which then, kind of opens us up for deeper intimacy with Him, a deeper relationship. And so that's, I really feel like David's tent is kind of, just this opening up of ourselves to the Spirit of God.
I think about how, in the New Testament it talks about us being a kingdom of kings and priests, and how in the Old Testament there was all these qualifications to be able to go further into the temple and to give the sacrifice, and then some people could do this, some people could do that, but really that it's been opened wide up, and there's a call to engage, to join in with what God is doing. And I think about, as we're dreaming and talking about what we're going to do here, just the invitation is come and serve just like the priest would serve, and it's not, and you're all qualified to come and bring your offerings, your, who you are, whether that's, like in painting or dance or in leading music or hitting a drum. I think it's just cool that there's like, an invitation to all.
I love the idea of space that we're making. It's like the whole concept of coming without an agenda or a set agenda of what's going to happen. This is going to happen this time. This is going to happen that time, and just saying, okay, here we are, God. We're going to present what we have to you. And I love the dynamic of the arts in it. I love the dynamic of seeing painters come. It takes time to paint, right? I keep on thinking too, the dynamic of building relationship with somebody doesn't happen quickly, right? And so many times we come to a worship service and it's like we expect it to happen, bam, right there, right? And it's like it takes time to develop that, right? It takes time to develop that intimacy with the Father, right? And so creating that space and allowing us to express it in a way that is us, right? Is genuine. I think that reflects also just the dynamic of worshiping in spirit and in truth, right? It's worshiping in the way that God has created us and the way He's wired us, and allowing that to come out in multiple facets, whether it's music, whether it's dance, whether it's art, whether it's just sitting and praying, and just sitting before the Father and just being in His presence, right? Whatever dynamic that looks like in creating that space, I just really believe it's going to be a really valuable time, not just for us, but just for us to extend our hearts towards the Father. Right?
I love the fact that you use the word truth, because I've always stumbled on that. What is worshiping in truth? But I think what it is when I first started coming to Jubilee at 18, and I had grown up in a Mennonite church for many years, where it was. My impression was it was about your outer performance and acceptance with God. And when I came here, it was like, oh, I can be authentically messy in front of God. I can be authentically real and raw before Him. And He loves me in that place of my ugliness.
Yeah.
And I look at David, and throughout the Psalms, like Psalms 51, he's pleading before the Lord saying, don't cast me away from your presence. Because here I am, like, committing adultery, murdering people, in his own mind thinking, I don't qualify for any of this. And God's response to him saying, I'll give you a clean heart. I will give you a pure spirit. This is the God we serve, is a God of mercy and love, of invitation, who draws us in the ugliest places that we are. And I think sometimes in church, we feel we have to perform for one another or perform before God. Now, He's interested in our hearts. He's interested in the truth of our hearts, the ugliness that we try to hide. He wants to bring forward and receive that as a sacrifice of worship before Him, and to create a place that's outside the church, in a tent, where the sound, not just the sound of music, but the sound of our hearts can be expressed before a living God. I think He'll be drawn to it.
As a church, we've always had these prophetic words of bring our sound, and I think this is an opportunity where we get to bring our unique sound to, this experience, to this, I don't know what to call it, but, and to our community, really. Like, they're going to hear our sound of worship and, kind of just piggybacking off of what we've done on a Sunday morning here in the tent, where the community hears the sound, but in a bigger way and a longer way too.
Yeah, and that's one of the pieces of feedback we get about having the tent, is how the community and our neighbors are so drawn by the music. They're so drawn by the sound of our worship. And, a lot of people drive past our dome and they might think, what goes on inside that dome? And here we are taking it outside the dome into the community. And I believe that the Lord is, He's seeking to pursue our community. We're His beloved, but He's seeking to pursue the community around us with a love that I think has been misrepresented by the church throughout church history. Saying that there's multiple different layers to God, or you don't qualify. He made us qualified. There is no other qualification but His love for us by the sacrifice He gave to us through His Son Jesus. And that sacrifice goes before Him perpetually, continually, all till eternity, so that we're all clean and blameless in His sight. So it's an invitation for us to come to love, which is exciting.